All right, a whole bunch of things to say about extensions. For one thing, I'm going to tell you your different tools. I would refer to Renee and the discussion I had with him about that. But basically, when you're thinking about extensions and positions, you kind of have the abduction and adduction of bringing the finger. You have flexion and extension. So the kind of two ways to either bringing that pinky to the treble or bringing all the fingers to the treble. Which Carlavaro calls left-hand presentation. You have forearm rotation, so obviously the pinky is going to be closer when you're supinated versus when you're more pronated or at an extreme like this. There's wrist flexion, which spreads the fingers, and then there's the abductors of the fingers themselves. They can spread on their own, and those are kind of your tools, and depending on what sort of stretch. If you look at this passage from the Barrios, so it's, I wouldn't claim to be an expert on doing good presentation. I'm probably using a little bit too much elbow, but if you watch, this is kind of illustrates the concept. So you kind of see the elements of presentation in the left hand and also the extensions in that. Been a while since I played that. Something on my guitar is buzzing like crazy. Anyway, over time this stuff becomes kind of organic. Like Kevin says in the video, he doesn't feel it as much. I can tell if I feel for it and listen to it. I can hear it when I'm playing jazz, but I'm at the point in my jazz, which admittedly has a smaller, thinner neck, and so it's easier, where a lot of this stuff, this presentation and extension stuff, is happening pretty organically and naturally, almost without thought. One thing to keep in mind, this is from, I think Renee says this, and also so does Iznaola in his method book. It's easier to spread from the pinky towards the index than it is to go the opposite way. If you want to know why that is, you'll have to read Iznaola's book. It's in my bibliography. He breaks down the anatomy of it. I'm not going to do that for now. One thing too that happens in presentation and extensions is kind of like how in the right hand we position with the shoulder to arm joint. If you watch, a lot of my movement is coming from the shoulder arm joint. Like that brings the finger, it's this out movement and flexion of the mist. And then shifting with the arm. So it's, so the point I'm trying to get you to see in this passage is that a lot of presentation and movement, I'm then reaching with the fingers, I'm bringing the index to here and bringing the pinky down with the shoulder to arm joint and the wrist and forearm rotation. The reason that this often gets neglected in classical guitar studies is because initially you're trying to get students to learn how to just use the fingers and to not use a bunch of arm and wrist. So you're trying to teach them to be consistent. But when you get to more advanced pieces like this one, then you need to be able to use the whole hand-arm complex, as Carlavaro says. Again, I would watch how Renee and other good players do these type of things and move. Everything I'm saying is accurate, but I am admittedly not in any way, shape, or form virtuosic in my knowledge of using these tools. So while I think this Barrios is a good example, as a parent would say, do as I say, not as I do. We'll leave it at that. In video 15.2, Renee shows one of his favorite extension exercises. I'd check that out. Keep in mind that the setup of your guitar, as we discussed in earlier videos, is it this way or this way, is it tilted, etc. That's going to affect the way extensions are. If the guitar is tilted like this, obviously you never play this way, but like reaching around it and presenting your hand to it and getting extensions is going to feel and look and be a lot different. Also the spacing of your frets, there's different scale sizes meaning the length from here all the way up to where it meets here, and then different spacings of frets. The most common is 650, but you can go larger if you have long, big fingers and hands, or you can go smaller. Mine is a 630, so everything's been shrunk, which then shrinks the spacing of all the frets. So that makes it a little bit easier for me to reach on this particular guitar. So the body of the way of the instrument is built and designed is also important. And then there's an example where Renee shows shifts versus extensions. And there's this example, let's see if I can remember it. So it's... So I can either go... and I can do a shift, or I can do an extension. So that I have an anchor finger and stay in contact with the guitar and don't leap and then try to find my place. So I'm not going... That's bad, this is good. Extending. So Renee kind of talks about like when do you use an extension versus when do you use a shift. As far as practicing extensions, I would recommend either using a Path to Virtuosity by Iznaola. There's exercises in there, or isolate different extensions in your pieces and really iron them out. Try different options, different tools. Feel what feels tense, what feels really easy and natural for you and your guitar.